Hi everybody, and welcome to Cloud Cuts, the show where we cut through the noise of cloud and everything around it. And today we're gonna talk about the new thing, really new, about AI and what it can do to your cloud production environments, how you recover. And in the last few minutes, we kind of talked, Michael, Ned, and myself, about some coding preferences and what we like to code. But on the other end, we realized that we no longer write code that much because AI is doing most of the job, most of the work, and it can do some funny stuff. So we're going to talk about it today. But before we going to talk about AI and what it can do to your cloud environment and how you recover from that, let's present our amazing guests, Ned and Michael. Ned, say a few words about yourself, please.
Hey, glad to be here. I'm Ned Bellavance. I'm the co-host of Day 2 DevOps. I'm also HashiCorp ambassador, probably best known for my Terraform work. But these days, I'm digging real deep into the world of AI and AI agents because I kind of see that as the future for infrastructure as code, along with many other software technologies.
Michael?
Hey, everybody. My name is Michael Levan. I am an AI architect and forward deployed engineer at a company called Solo.io. I pretty much just focus all on AI things at this point, agent runtimes, agent gateways, registries, and a little bit of service mesh and how that all kind of ties together. Aside from that, I'm an AIF ambassador, Microsoft Azure MVP, CNCF ambassador, and I do a lot of talking and blogging and all that fun stuff.
Wonderful. And by the way, I'm Ohad Maislish. I'm a solutions architect here at Eon. Uh, and as I said, we're going to talk about AI today. So the first thing I want to talk about, AI can do uh, wonderful things very quickly, very efficiently, uh, in an amazing way. But let's start think about how we govern what it can and cannot do, because if we, you know, it reminds me of the movie Spider-Man. Remember when Spider-Man was told with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Uh, so, so
Yeah.
maybe let's talk about Spider-Man
Yeah.
and what it means to be a Spider-Man nowadays. So, Ned, Michael, what do you think should be the right approach, the right balance between speed, velocity, and the great power and the great responsibility? Well, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I'll start if you don't mind, Michael.
Sure.
We've definitely been moving in a direction from where you're using AI to help you write some code or some bash scripts or something locally. So the margin for error is a little bit less because it's all happening locally on your box. And as long as you don't let it go off and try to make changes for you in production, you're keeping it pretty tightly coupled to what's happening on your desktop. But slowly people have started introducing the idea of these independent agents that are running outside of your local desktop and are able to take actions on your environment without necessarily human in the loop approval. And that's where I think things get super dangerous. And we have to start putting some guardrails around what those agents are capable of doing. And I'm sure, Michael, you have some opinions on what those guardrails might look like.
Yeah, thanks for the setup there, Ned. Rest in peace, Uncle Ben, per the Spider-Man stuff that we were talking about earlier. So, so yeah, it's it's interesting to think about, especially as like all the petitions even around like open weight models and stuff are coming out, right? So it's like what guardrails to use when you're using agents, all the way down the line to what models should you be using, right? Where are those models hosted? What information are you giving the model to then that model have the ability to phone home back that information, right? I think it all comes down to what your point A is and what your point B is. And I always say this, right? Like any customer that I'm talking to, I say, what's your point A and what's your point B? Your point A is some chatbot, some agent harness, some whatever that you're interacting with. Your point B is an LLM, another agent, maybe an MCP server. And what guardrails and what security protocols and governance are you putting in that line of communication, which is your AI gateway, right? So, like
Hmm.
whatever AI gateway you're using, you want to be able to put those guardrails right there. That's where it should all start. That's also where your things like rate limiting and prompt guards and anything around governance in general starts. But that's my take on it. Like it always ends up almost starting at the gateway level. Aside from the stuff that like you would utilize to secure your harness, and like how you're interacting with agents.
Oh, that's really interesting to put it in those terms, because I was thinking of what is the agent capable of doing? Can it
Right.
invoke a tool locally and go out and destroy your cloud production environment? But you're taking it from a different tack, is when requests are being sent to a model for processing, we want to enforce some policies and security at that layer.
Yep.
How do we do that? Has to go through a proxy. It reminds me a lot of how we would do security for like an application gateway.
Yep.
You don't want to just let anybody send any old request to your APIs. You want a gateway that's sitting there and it's monitoring requests that come in and say, this looks like spam, so I'm going to just block it, or this endpoint is sending way too much traffic. I think, I'm going to rate limit that particular endpoint. So that's one approach to security that's separate from what I was thinking.
I would so this is my take. Y'all might have a different take, and please tell me if you do. But like I actually maybe because I'm just so embedded in the world at this point that I kind of see them as one in a sense. So like for example, like really what you're talking about is like, hey, how do I secure my harness locally or in Foundry or Gemini Enterprise or whatever, right? Like wherever that harness is running, how do I secure that harness to ensure that it can do X, Y, Z, right? What other agents it can interact with, what models it can interact with, what MCP servers it can interact with. And I even there, I think it still comes down to what capabilities your harness and your gateway have. Two
Sure.
examples, right? Let's say we're talking about like general token exchange or like OIDC based OAuth. Like whatever you can do on your agent comes from permissions. And those permissions are based off of whatever OIDC provider you're using. And you're tying that OIDC provider into your agent harness, or you're doing some type of like OBO style token exchange, which is happening at the gateway because the token needs to be exchanged via the STS to secure token server, and that's going to come from your gateway. Another example is like, let's say prompt guarding, right? So like, hey, I want to ensure that my agent can only do X, Y, Z. I want to make sure that I can't prompt my agent to say, go delete all my Kubernetes clusters in production, right? That comes from the prompt guard, which could be tied in with your guardrails at the gateway. So like, I still think regardless of what you can do at the agent, blocking what it can do or governing what it can do. Blocking is a harsh word. Governing what it can do comes at that gateway level. Um,
Mm,
that's where I kind of see things.
I, I want to say that all those concepts are of guardrails are extremely important, and those discussions remind me two places to like. Let's move from the AI world to the real world for a sec. Two places that one I visit often, and the other one I don't visit that often. I'm talking about airports and casinos. So I visit airports pretty often.
Yeah, I was gonna say
And
which one is is your choice.
some people are the opposite, they just maybe live in Vegas or something, so maybe they have
yeah.
different way of living. But if you think about what it means, airport security, you have different kinds of uh, of governance and different kinds of gateways.
Mhm,
And it's not that one thing is the only important thing. The combination of all of
mhm,
those concepts, that's what provides the overall security. And if you go to a casino, there is the security at the entrance. There are the cameras near every casino table. You have uh, somebody who is in charge, and obviously you have the vaults. I've never been to a casino vault, but I assume there is a different kind of security over there and what's not. So, i- it's important to be aware of the different things that make sense to govern as an organization. And Ned, you've mentioned the first thing that an AI agent can do is to harm your cloud workloads, your production. And so I can give a personal example that I don't let usually the AI agents that I have to do anything in production. But on the other hand, I do provide them with the kind of full access to my code to the GitHub repos.
Mm.
So I had an incident in which I asked the AI agent to do some merges into the repo, and it just did the wrong merge to the wrong wrong repo,
Oh,
whereas a lot of people were working. So it's not directly affecting the cloud resources at the moment, but just think about what kind of access and what can potentially go wrong, what are the gateways, and plan accordingly. And I think, again, with great power comes comes great responsibility.
sure. Sure. I've heard a lot of people sort of equate your AI agents to junior administrators that have access to a ton of knowledge and can do stuff super fast, but are also not very seasoned. And so you have to keep an eye on them. And so a lot of the times people are taking the approach of the amount of access I give the agent is the amount of access I would give to that junior admin.
Hmm.
So maybe they can deploy to dev, or I give them a sandbox
Hmm.
environment that they can
Hmm.
play in and deploy stuff
Exactly.
to.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
yeah, for production, they can put in pull requests, and something else needs to review that pull request before it gets merged. But I think that is becoming a bottleneck if you want to move fast, because the
Hmm.
agents can write code and create pull requests far faster than you as a human can
Hmm.
review those. So
Hmm.
I'm curious, like, Michael, do you have an opinion on having another AI review the pull requests or the merge requests?
I think there always needs to be somebody looking at something, right? Like, I, and I don't think that these are concepts that we aren't aware of already, right? Like if I'm writing some application, right? I'm building out some stack. If I don't put any guardrail around the idea of like use X amount of memory, use X amount of CPU for this thread, for this whatever, it's just going to take everything up that's in the system, right? If
Right.
I don't put anything around as a human, if I don't put the things around what it's supposed to do and what it's not supposed to do, it's going to go and it's going to do whatever it thinks that it should do, right? And that's the same thing as AI. So like if you don't put the proper implementations in place of does it have the right agent skills? Does it have proper examples? Does it have the right tools to call out to? Does it know that it should only be working in this repo and not in another repo? Does it know that it should be opening up PRs or creating issues in this repo, not in that repo? Like I still I think this is where the human has to come into play. I'm a
Hmm.
firm believer of like having another agent check an agent's math, right? So like what I'll
Sure.
do is I'll pop up like Opus or Fable or Grok 4.5 or like whatever, and I always have GPT 5.6 as the checker, just because I personally have better experiences utilizing GPT models versus Claude models. I don't know if it's just because of what I'm doing or how I'm prompting or whatever. So I always have agents check my math and then I'll go in and I'll actually check it. But I do also believe like this is where the person needs to come into play. Even if the person comes in way at the end of checking the Git issue, looking at what's been PR'd, et cetera, somebody has to come in at some point and take a look. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the way I see the world in that sense right now.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the CI/CD pipeline is to automate as much of it as you can. And
Right.
one thing that I found is that agents are really good at writing tests.
Yep.
And so rather than having an agent review all aspects, I can have it help me write really good
100%.
and thorough tests.
100%. And so this is another thing that I will say, and I'm curious to hear from the audience as well, to see if like you kind of have seen this as well in your journey. regardless of what I'm doing, right? Any type of demo that I'm creating, if I'm just creating like an agent runtime demo with Kagent, I'm doing something with Agent Gateway for the AI gateway stuff. I'm doing some agent mesh stuff, so I'm bringing in like the agent gateway, I'm bringing in Istio, I'm bringing in all these things. Regardless of what I'm doing at whatever level, it's a level 100 demo or a level 400 demo that I'm building out in some repo. I every single time I go and run it myself, run the commands myself, I'm happy that I did. I have never
Yes.
one-shotted an MD file, a YAML, a Python config, whatever. I've never one-shotted something where I'm like, oh, it just worked. The agent did it and it just worked. Regardless of like, I have agent skills for to be a Kagent expert, to be an agent gateway expert, to be an Istio expert, to be a Kubernetes expert. I have particular like MCP servers that I'll have agents go out and hit, regardless of what model I use. It does not matter. Like it cannot one shot something for me. So I think that somebody has to be there checking it at some point.
Yes. I
Hmm.
think
And
we were talking about this before the webinar started, how each of us are letting AI write more of our code. But if we really want to understand how something works, we need to dig in and write some of the code ourselves and run some of the code ourselves to
Yeah.
see where it breaks. Because, like you said, it's one-shotting it, it's never going to work. And I've seen so many AI agents kind of get stuck in a debug loop
Yep.
where they can't quite figure it out. And it really takes a person to step in and take a look at it and go, oh, I see exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's so this is one thing that agents won't be able to understand, context, pun intended. But when I'm saying context, I'm saying like human context, right? Like
Yeah.
when I'm so like I've been diving into the whole idea around like agent mesh and stuff a lot, which is essentially like your agent has a workload identity, just like a service in your service mesh would have a workload identity. Um, and you can track that identity and then you can like have everything go through an AI gateway and put policies and such in there. But like if you go and you ask an agent like build me a demo for agent mesh, I think you're going to get a drastically different result in comparison to how I would build it out, right? And agents are only as good as the model that you're using, and the model is only as good as the information that it has. So like
Hmm.
if you're going and you're building out a demo or something in production, it doesn't matter, with new concepts that maybe there aren't a lot of docs about, there aren't a lot of public Git repos about to share or to feed it. The results that you're going to get is it's just going to guess based on what it thinks it is.
Yep.
Just like I'm going to guess based on what it is if there aren't a lot of docs and there isn't like a code base for me to look at, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's where agents like fall apart, which is like the context, right? The idea of like what
absolutely.
am I trying to build here? You know?
And, and you know, in order to make sure that the agents don't do the wrong things, if we think about those governance platforms, Michael, I believe you have some demo to show about, how to implement such a concept, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. And this is like a very like light, like giving you an idea of like what a platform could look like. Let me just pull this up here really quick.
Yeah, I think while Michael's setting that all up, I think it's important to set the stage for folks who are not super advanced in their AI journey and
Yep,
are just starting out with using, VS Code with the built-in Copilot or something along those lines.
yep,
That's where you might start, but eventually you're going to want to move some of that workload off of your local workstation and your harness into something else that is managed and hosted, perhaps. And so what Michael's going to pull up is Microsoft's version of this, which is Microsoft Foundry, which is all about building and hosting agents. And there are similar offerings from all the major public clouds. Just, Michael and I both happen to be Microsoft MVPs. So.
yeah, and I think like that's something really important to understand too. Like right before I dive into this is what you're running, how you're running it, and where you're running it. Like you can go in a couple of different directions here. You can go into the direction of, hey, I want a full-fledged SaaS that can do everything, right? So Foundry, like we see here, Gemini Enterprise, right? AWS Bedrock. But then you might think like, oh, like I want a full stack that I can kind of manage and utilize, right? So like you can look into, Cajun open source, Agent Registry open source, Agent Gateway open source, and then you might want to put those things together. So like you might want to have Foundry agents running and those Foundry agents go through an AI gateway that you manage, right? So like
Hmm.
Foundry has its own gateway, but you don't have to go through the Foundry agents. So you can split up these pieces and build out your agentic stack based on what you're actually trying to accomplish. Sorry, I had a protein shake this morning and it's just been here for the past 4 hours. So if I'm coughing, apologies. Um, so there's a couple of different pieces here. There's the discover piece and then there's the build piece. So probably a lot of the times, like if the audience is more engineering centric, you'll probably live here, right? Which is, you can see models, you can see agents, you can see things that are running here, but this is actually where you can like go in and interact with an agent. So probably the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to Discover, you're going to go to models, and you're going to say, what model do I want to run? All right. And this is where we get into the discussion of like, do we want to go the open weight model path or do we want to go the I don't know whatever I've been calling them like the SaaS model path, right? The SaaS providers, which is like your OpenAI and your Grok and your Claude models and all that, right? It's essentially it's models that you can't control in terms of like, can you fine tune them? Can you build them? Can you put your own information in them? Can you download them, right? Like, can I like see the parameters in this model? So the closed models, like GPT models, and Claude models and such, you can't. But then you have open weight models. So things like DeepSeek models and the Kimi K3 models and the Llama models. So you would go and you would pick and choose like what model I want to use, right? And then I would go and I would deploy that model. Now, once that model is deployed, because I don't want everybody to sit here and wait for 5 minutes, so I already deployed one, you then have this model here. So like in this case, I have an agent that I created, and this agent is utilizing Grok 4.3. I should probably upgrade that to 4.5 at some point. And then here, voice mode. I think that's actually new. I think they might have just put that in. So you can have voice mode where you can talk to it versus typing. You can write your agent
When is
instructions.
when is the next phase of telepathy? You
Yeah,
don't even need to
yeah,
talk. It
yeah.
Just
just
think it real
understands what
hard.
you're thinking.
I'm
You have
gonna
a
I
chip, and then it does what you want to do.
I
That's
have my Neuralink appointment for next Tuesday to start
Don't
to,
do it.
start to be able to play Call of Duty just from my brain. It's gonna be awesome. Uh, so your instructions, this is like the system prompt. Where you're going to say, hey, you're a principal, software engineer dedicated in the Kubernetes space, blah, blah, blah. And then you can go and you can start interacting with your agent, right? And you can just say hi and whatever's here. Now, outside of this, you're going to be thinking to yourself things like, what do the traces maybe look like, right? So, like, what is this trace tree for the input and the output? How did the agent respond? I don't know if Foundry has this here specifically. Oh, yeah, here we go. Perfect. So, input tokens, output tokens, total tokens, right? So, like,
Hmm.
how much did the interaction cost me? Did the agent perform as well as expected? And that's where things like agent evaluations would come into play, right? So, like, you can take a trace and you can feed that to an agent eval tool and say, hey, how did this perform based on a golden eval set? And the golden eval set might be like, how did it respond? Did it go outside of the guardrails? What model did it hit, et cetera, right? Like, what was the actual text-based response? And then you have things in here like fine tuning. So having the ability to take a GPT OSS model or a DeepSeek model or a Llama model and train it based on your data set. I just put out a YouTube video last week doing this exact thing for like fine tuning a model. And this is everything in one roof, right? So like this is your SaaS based AI platform. But you may not want that. Again, you may want more control over your platform. You may not want to have to live in the guardrails, pun intended, of what your cloud provider gives you. So there's so many different directions that this can go in, and this is just one. And I think that it's a solid place to get started since everything's under one roof.
Yeah, I think this was a great example of the difference between managed and unmanaged concept. Once you have
Mhm.
everything centralized, and especially when the platform, in this case Microsoft, adds more and more concepts that
Yeah.
can control and just make sure that you're doing more effective work without slowing you down in a
Yeah.
way that reduces the risk with every new
Mhm.
concept that is introduced. But it's up to you to know what you're doing and to maybe build the right strategy of
Yep.
what you want to do
Hmm.
with AI. Well, what do you think?
100%.
Yeah, I think one thing you kind of brought up, Michael, which is also incredibly important, is the observability aspect
Hmm.
and being able to trace conversations and token usage. You know, partly that's from a financial perspective. We know tokens are going to be getting a little bit more expensive. So
Yep.
being able to trace your token usage and also put limits on those so you don't have a runaway agent process use up a million tokens,
Yep.
burning its wheels. Um, then there's the auditability aspect of it, being
Mm-hmm.
able to trace back why an agent made certain decisions or what its
Mm-hmm.
thinking path looked like. And then also a security perspective, being able to monitor what it's doing in real time and make decisions based off of what information you're pulling in. So like whatever you decide to use, make sure that it's instrumented for observability.
Yep.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean I would say cost is like a really big topic right now, but
Mhm.
like going a lot deeper. Like I'll work with government agencies, I'll work with like very large financial institutions and like the largest banks in the world, and a lot of what they're asking for is like, okay, I can see the trace, right? I can see the metrics, I can see the logs, I can see the observability data. I now
Mhm.
need to take this and store this somewhere because like compliance dictates that I need to keep this for 7 years.
Sure.
So like having the ability to pull that information out and actually see it, that's very important. And again, that's where an AI gateway comes into play. Like you can't do any of that. You can't have logs, tracks, logs, traces, metrics from your agent to your LLM or your MCP server or your other agent, unless there's a gateway sitting in the middle that you can pull those data points out of. So unless those data points are exposed, you virtually have no way to do it, unless like I don't know if like the Anthropic console or the OpenAI console, like maybe like they give you a way to like export a log or export a trace or do whatever in like the enterprise offerings, but like you virtually have no way to do that unless you have some gateway sitting in the middle.
Mhm.
So that's very important for a lot of people in a lot of different agencies. Aside from like, hey, I want to make sure that this thing is performing as expected, and I want to make sure that my cost is good. I also need to make sure that if an agent goes haywire, right, like something goes wrong in my environment, I need to be able to track it back to what
Yeah.
agent, to when, what time, what prompt, what made it do this thing. Because if you can't do that, you can never improve the process of utilizing agents.
I recently I was tinkering around with quantizing models at different levels
Hmm.
and then asking them a simple prompt to see what, the token processing was looked like. And so I forget which model I was quantizing, but I did like a 3-bit quantization, which is pretty small. And I asked it to tell me a story about Qbert, the 80s video game character. And it started trying to map out what it wanted to do, and then it got caught in a loop where it kept saying that it shouldn't compare Qbert to all these different Mario
Oh,
characters.
wow.
And it would print out the same 8 characters over and over in a loop, and it just didn't stop for like 10 minutes
Oh, wow.
until I, control C'd out of it. So that's that's just the sort of thing that can happen with any model.
Yeah.
More likely to happen when you make your model real dumb.
Yep. Yep.
um, if that had been running through a service, I would have been just chewing through tokens as it
100%.
just kept giving me more and more repeated output of the same thing. You need
Yeah,
something that can detect that loop and cut it off before it burns through a million of your tokens.
absolutely. And that's where like your golden eval sets come into play, like whatever agent evals tool you're using. That's where that definitely comes into play. Because to your point, also, it's like what a lot of people are thinking is, oh wow, Fable costs me a ton of money. Opus cost me a ton of money, etc. So what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to pull an open weight model. And oh, I don't have the best hardware, so I'm going to utilize like a 30 billion parameter model. What people are quickly realizing is the smaller model you use, the less information it has, the less parameters that it has, the less things that it's trained on. So exactly what you're saying, right? Like, what do I do here if the model's small and it doesn't have the information that I need?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we see the options of how to govern the outcome of those agents, but sometimes even when we do our best, things happen. In the case of Ned, it tried to create this story, so maybe no real harm was done,
Yeah.
but in reality, we see some examples. It can be cost related, but it can be real stability uh, or data related to your
Yeah.
production environment. So let's maybe talk about that. What happens if we did our best and we have all the audits, to make sure that next time the chances it will happen will be smaller, but we now have a real production incident and we need to recover. We need as soon as possible to bring production to a working state.
Yeah.
um, I'm thinking about mainly two things that can go wrong in those incidents. One is about your configuration of the cloud environment, and the other is about your data. So, I'm thinking about, let's say you have VPC or security groups configured, and then the agent, the AI, changes something around some resource, and then all of a sudden things stop working or maybe continue to work but in an unsecure way. So it damaged your configuration, but luckily nothing bad happened to your data. So that's one scenario. I would like to hear your thoughts. The second scenario is nothing happened to the configuration, but something really bad happened to your data. Something was deleted or something was updated in a way that doesn't match your production workflows. Mature environments usually tend to keep some backup of the data somewhere. So when data in production is being damaged, the first question might be, is my backup okay? Or maybe it's also damaged. So those are kind of the first questions maybe you ask yourself when you had a production incident. By the way, whether it's from AI or from human, a friendly human in your organization or an attacker that tried to do something, eventually the outcome is the same. Something bad happened to production. But now with AI, it can happen so quickly in an unexpected way. So maybe we should pay more attention to A, how we reduce the chances of that being happen, and B, what
Hmm.
is our plan in case something bad happens. So what are your thoughts, Ned and Michael, about what I tried to describe?
Sure. Well, we're kind of talking about stateless versus stateful
Mm-hmm.
resources getting removed or deleted. So if it's a stateless thing like a security group rule, the answer is hopefully you have this all in infrastructure as code and you just remediate the drift, right?
Yep.
You detect the drift, you remediate the drift, you're back to your original security group rules that were approved by your security team, and you don't have a random port. Why could it happen? Well, models are really incentivized to help you out, to accomplish a task that you put in front of them. And if you gave, and they'll find novel ways to do it. That the most recent hack of Hugging Face happened because the model wanted to find information and it thought that a data set and Hugging Face would have the information. So it managed to escape its sandbox and access Hugging Face to get the information. It was just trying to like accomplish the task, right? So if you put together a task where you're like, I need some information from this server, and the port it needs isn't open on that server, it might just add the security group rule, port 22 to get SSH access to pull some logs for you. It's like, I'm being helpful. And you're like, no, you're breaking my security model. So like that can absolutely happen. And you definitely need, drift detection and security in place to realize that, and then have infrastructure as code that can just roll over and remediate that drift when it happens. When we're talking about stateful data destruction, that's like a whole other conversation. And I'm going to throw that to Michael and see his thoughts on it before I share mine.
Yeah. Well, I think just answering that question directly, it's like let's think about like first principles for DevOps and platform engineering and infrastructure engineering, which is like have backups and like test them, right? Uh, but like I think overall, what ends up happening in these cycles are people moving too fast. And I'll say something that like maybe people aren't used to hearing in the agentic era, which is like you need to figure out a way to slow down. Like we are
Mm.
so because AI is so efficient and it's right at our fingertips, we're so easy to like turn auto approve on or just click enter yes, 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 yes after everything that that an agent tells us and it just goes and it does stuff, right? But like
Mhm.
we really need to learn how to slow down again. And I'm not saying slow down the process, but like have a good understanding of what the agent is doing and make sure that you have a ton of integration tests. Like I think above all else, the most important thing moving forward in the software engineering discipline is going to be integration tests. Like test this workflow. And it's hard when you have this non like, people say testing is hard when you have this non-deterministic system, right? It's like you can ask an agent to do something 5 times and maybe it does it right 3 times and 2 times it goes off and it does something else. But at the same time, humans are non-deterministic. So like when people started saying, "Oh, these systems are non-deterministic," I'm like, "Yeah, so are we." Like that doesn't mean anything. So I think having good, solid integration tests, testing in production, having mock tests, sure, but like testing in production, testing on your actual systems, ensuring that this workflow with these prompts is at least fitting the bill 90% of the time, because you're never going to get 100%, because we're never going to get 100%, right? Like we're
Sure.
never going to be at 100%. So if you can get these things to act the way that they should 90% of the time, that's going to be your best friend there. Are you going to stop every bad thing that can occur? No, of course not. Just like cybersecurity dictates that you want to minimize as much threat as possible. You're never going to stop all threat. Just
Right.
like you're never going to stop all agents from going and doing something wacky. And that could be something as simple as the LLM that you're hitting is under serious load. There's a lot of processing power going on right now because it's at a peak time and it's beginning to hallucinate because of that, right? So some stuff is just simply out of your control, but having as much integration tests as humanly possible is going to be the key for that.
I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of integration tests and in general tests. My first job was QA. I'm I want to say 27 years ago. Wow, I'm getting older. So that was a long time ago, and since then, by the way, it was for a company you just presented earlier, Microsoft. So we're all
Oh, wow.
in the same place. But anyway, having more tests is definitely the best way, to find fail fast or to find things as early as possible. I want to say a few things about the stateful kind of damage that can happen to your production environment. And Ned mentioned, for the stateless things, infrastructure as code is the best practice to just remediate the drift. And if you're not using infrastructure as code, you're probably going to have more challenges recovering from those kind of incidents. But back to stateful um, incidents. So as a company, you need to have some backup strategy and to be able to recover from things. And when we talk about testing, integration tests are great to test things early. But back to what's going on in production, you need to validate that you don't just have backups, but those backups are meaningful and helpful to recover in such incidents. And some folks that I talk to say, "Yeah, I have backups. I have S3 versioning." Okay, so if something bad happens to my current data, I can just roll back to an older version. And I think it's a good opportunity to remind everybody that extra copies or snapshots are not necessarily backups, because those can be deleted as well. The entire bucket can be deleted. The snapshots can be deleted. So the best practice and approach is to store those backups separately. And I want to
Hmm.
mention the term immutable backup in a way that it cannot be deleted, and it's always better to separate the access to the production versus the access to backups, the term logically air gapped, and separating everything in a total different environment that the agents, and by the way, attackers and ransomware and all that fun stuff that can happen to your data. Just keep in mind when you're thinking about the day of the incident and what you need to be prepared. Extra copies is fine, but it's not a real strategy to recover from risky incidents. What do you think, Michael and Ed?
Um, I think it's really important to figure out what you're trying to protect against. What are the scenarios that you're trying to protect against, and what kind of failure modes are out there, and then actually protect and test one of those events, like simulate that event happening. What happens if someone successfully deletes your S3 bucket?
Mm-hmm.
How do you recover from that? Oh, I don't have a plan. Well, we should probably put a plan in place. Or, if you're doing like a copy of it to a different AWS account in a different region, how do I now recover that data back? Do
Yep.
I have a scripted process for that, or am I manually clicking around the console, which you don't want to do in an emergency? You want something that's scripted and quick to get you back where you wanted to be. A long time ago when I was in consulting, I remember going to one client and they were doing SQL Server backups to a file share, which I was like, oh, okay, that's good. And then I realized that the SQL Server and the file server were both running on the same physical
VM.
machine on Hyper-V.
Physical machine. Okay. Yeah.
And so I was like, so what happens if this machine is lost? You've lost all your backups and your SQL server. So it's that like planning for different disaster scenarios and then actually practicing, simulating that scenario. That's something that AI can really help with, is helping you if you have access to the necessary APIs, which if you're using cloud and you're using a service that a backup service that offers the APIs, you can simulate the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The standing up an environment in the cloud, populating it with stuff, accidentally deleting something, and then calling out to your recovery solution to recover that data. You could test the whole thing and make that part of your, weekly integration tests.
Yeah, doing those dry runs. Well, what do you
Yeah.
think, Michael?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like to Ned's point earlier, like AI is really good at writing tests. Just open up an agent and be like, this is the scenario.
Yep.
Write me a test. Show me the recovery options. Give me like a bullet point list of like, if I do this thing, what's the bad thing that can occur? Like literally just
Mhm.
use AI for this. And look, like there's two things that nobody likes writing, and that's docs and tests. And AI is really good at both. So like utilize that.
Wow,
Like
that was a great call out. Yeah, I could
You
not
know what
agree
people
more.
really don't like writing? They don't like writing disaster recovery plans, and they really don't
yes.
like updating them.
Yes, and they don't like signing their pips either. So definitely definitely make sure that you're doing the right thing and doing integration tests.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Absolutely. And we think about the risks of what can go wrong.
Yeah.
Another thing that we are all facing is the evolution of the new and very powerful models. I'm talking about Fable, Mythos, and these kind of potential attackers can
Hmm.
get more and more powerful and more capabilities to penetrate your organization. So
Yeah.
where and maybe to create by itself, a better attacker. And that is like a loop that is, very interesting and dangerous that we're all facing, like this uncontrolled environment that potentially can do a lot of damage. What are your thoughts about how the world is going to look like 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe even a week from now? I don't know. Things go so fast, and what should be our plan to prepare against those kind of risks?
I, Michael, earlier you said, in cybersecurity, it's sort of assume breach and try to minimize the blast radius of a breach. So implementing things like zero trust architecture and networking and using identity as a barrier. A lot of the attacks that we've seen from something like Fable or Mythos, they're not necessarily novel attacks.
Mhm.
They're still doing the same basic things. It's just that AI and automation can do it faster and across a much broader swath. So if you're not protected against SQL injection attacks today, you might have gotten by. But now, your average script kiddie can detect that a lot faster by relying on one of these models. So I think basic cybersecurity hygiene still is going to get you a lot of the way there. And in addition to assume breach, assume deletion. Assume that any part of your infrastructure or data could be deleted at any minute and have a plan for how you're going to recover from that incident.
Maybe even your entire cloud account, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean, like without question, like it was just a couple months ago, Amazon had that big database deletion issue because of an agent, like or because
Yeah.
of just AI in general. I don't know, but yeah, well, whatever story they told us, that's what we got. But like to Ned's point, it's like just whatever you've been doing as a platform engineer, DevOps engineer, infrastructure engineer, security engineer, like all the processes that you have been following, just do that same thing. Like, don't think just because like AI's here and it's super fast and stuff. By the way, marketing is phenomenal around AI, right? So like it's telling us like, yeah, you just open up this agent and you put out this product and you're gonna make $30 million a month. It's gonna be quick. Here's the 5 steps to do it. But like that's not reality, right? So like just keep doing what you've been doing, right? Like that's I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know if I'm describing it all that well, but like literally just take the processes that you've already put in place for cloud, for data centers, for everything else, and just follow those same processes. Good security, use your brain, have good backups. Like those 3 things will get you very far.
And
Yep.
and, and we got a question from the audience. It's like, is there a class of task you just never hand to an agent, no matter how good the guardrails get, or everything is fair game eventually? Like, do we have that kind of I don't know, list of things we never want to give an agent, or with the right guardrails we
Credentials.
Yeah, I was going to say the first thing I
exactly.
go to in my mind is like issuing credentials or like
Yeah.
creating the root certificate for a certificate authority
Yes.
tree, like PKI.
Yeah.
That seems like a human activity.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And they've actually gotten pretty good at it. Like GPT like or Codex will yell at me because like I'll just like generate an API key that's gonna like expire in an hour. But I'm like, use this to do XYZ, right? Again, just go through the testing flow. And it tries to tell me to stop immediately, get rid of this, blah, blah, blah. Or like I'll have like an MD file open and I'll have like an environment variable for like an Anthropic API key and I'll paste in the environment variable. I'm not committing anything to GitHub. It's there so I can copy it and run it or whatever in my terminal. And it's like, oh, by the way, stop everything you're doing and delete this key. It's like, buddy, just keep doing what I'm telling you to do. I got this. Don't worry. So it's getting better in terms of like those guardrails. But yeah, I would say credentials is the biggest thing for sure.
Right.
Funny,
That,
yeah. So no root access and credentials to
I,
your new AI buddy.
I could argue against the fact of like you can give it root access, you can give it database access, you can give it cloud access. just like be smart about it, right? Like remember, the agent is only going to go and do what you click enter on in the yes, right? If
Yep.
there's a prompt yes, no, if you click enter, it's going to go do it. And if you give it auto mode, it's going to go do it. So like it can have access to things, but like watch what it's doing, right? Don't just walk away or scroll TikTok on your phone. Like understand what's going on underneath the hood and understand what's happening. And if you're doing that, you can give it root access because like remember, you're
Yep.
giving people root access to things. You're giving people access to production databases. You're giving people access to a full Azure, AWS, or GCP account. So it's really no different. And by the way, like we were talking about earlier with standard security stuff, right? Like what group is this agent in? What
Hmm.
group does that have access to? Are you doing OBO? If you are, what access does this person have that's utilizing this agent, right? So like all this stuff that we constantly hear around production databases going down, this cloud bill being crazy high, these are all like table stakes problems that are solvable for sure.
I
Yeah.
think what I'm hearing from you, Michael, is basically two things. A, be mindful of
Yeah.
uh, of what you're doing, and the second thing you kind of said is the concept of least privileges. Okay,
Yep.
to give
100%.
and if you're mindful and you keep the least privileges approach, uh, maybe that's like the 80-20 rule here
Yeah.
to prevent a lot of damage pretty easily.
Yep.
Make sense?
100%. Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
cool. We're about to wrap up. I want to thank you both for being here, and I want to thank the audience for listening to this conversation. Here at the Honor, we try to help our audience with certain things, definitely around recovery and what happens to your cloud and your data. So if you want to learn more about how to recover from an incident, whether it's from a human, whether it's from an attacker, or from a friendly AI agent that one of the employees ran internally, we're here to help. Uh, Ned, Michael, anything else you'd like to say to the great audience today?
Uh, Thank you so much for tuning in for your questions. And if you want to connect with me, I'm very easy to find. Just look me up on LinkedIn. Reach out. My messages are open. And if you want an interesting podcast to listen to, may I humbly recommend Day Two DevOps on the Packet Pushers Network.
Yes.
Absolutely.
As one of the probably five podcasts that I listen to nowadays, Day Two DevOps is in that list. So yeah, definitely check that out for sure.
Thank you.
Um, and yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Really, really appreciate it. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, just Michael Levan, and on X. I still post a ton on X, and I cross post and stuff. So if you're on one versus the other, I'm on each of those.
Wonderful. Again, thank you so much, everybody. And till next time, Cloud Cats. See you again.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.